Anxiety and depression comes with a price that no one struggling with them asks for. It takes a toll on your ability to get things done and to see the positives in the world, to think highly of yourself without feeling conceited, and to make every question you ask feel like it's the wrong question, and that you are nothing but a burden to those around you. Now, Matt Thorson is a man like that. He has openly talked about his anxieties in interviews with websites such as Kotaku, about his struggle and how his anxieties forced him to throw himself into his work to the point of being burned out. He made Celeste with an idea in mind. Essentially, he wanted to make a tough-as-nails game that dealt with anxiety and depression, but also one that treated anyone playing with respect. In his words, "If you're making a game about anxiety and depression, it felt like to us that we needed to show the same kindness to the player that we want to show ourselves." That statement rang true throughout the entire game. Born from a prototype Pico 8 game, Celeste showed exactly what gameplay it would revolve around: precision platforming, dashing, wall grabbing, mixed with stamina management. Matt Thorson, or Matty as he's known on Twitter, was well known for creating difficult levels for the Super Mario Maker community. He took some ideas from that and from his previous game Towerfall, which uses a very similar art style to the platforms and backgrounds, and created an experience that is super difficult. But that difficulty ultimately serves as another subtlety of what amazed me about the story. The story of Celeste follows a young woman named Madeline, who goes on a journey to do something challenging and have something to which she can look back on and say she finished it. The setup very early on is that you can tell through a bit of nuanced dialogue at first is that Madeline don't even believe she can make it. She's already doubting herself. Along the base of the mountain she meets an old lady, Granny, who tells her there is something magical and dangerous about the mountain, and she laughs at what she says. Madeline takes offense. Of course she does. Anyone with anxiety can tell you that laughter can sometimes feel like it is at your expense. But you never know for sure. With all your doubt, though, it's not hard for yourself to believe it to be true. The old woman never makes it crystal clear, but you, the player, feel like she's mocking you. So controlling Madeline, you push through on your journey. Eventually you find a tombstone memorial to honor those who have died while climbing Celeste Mountain, which I think is also a wonderful nod to the players and sets up that, yeah, this game's tough. Madeline falls asleep by campfire and has a nightmare that brings out a frightening person to confront. It is Madeline herself, but another side of her, a mean side, her anxious, depressed-ridden side, the side of her soul that tells her that she's nothing and worthless, and that she'll never accomplish her goals. During the run-in comes some frantic gameplay from which you are chased by the other self, putting your platforming skills you've learned up to this point to the test because you have to move fast. One touch from your other self automatically ends in the death of your character. The wonderful part about these deaths, though, is that you learn each time you die. There's even a postcard during the loading screens that sometimes says, "Be proud of your death count. Each death means you are learning." And it also doesn't take you too far back. The game is actually quite forgiving when talking about checkpoints. Each room is a checkpoint, and the loading you back into the game is almost instantaneous, so it never feels like a chore to die. Eventually you outrun your other self, or cells as she eventually multiplies during the chase. You end up at a payphone and talk with what you assume is her ex. This crushed me when the person automatically assumed Madeline was lying to get attention, and that it was all in her head, offering no real help. The person eventually ends up telling her that they essentially don't even want to talk to her. Madeline learns it was a dream, though, and another trick, the mountain, which is essentially a metaphor for depression at this point, is playing a trick on her. You also see that the other self, which is the living embodiment of anxiety and the feeling of being hopeless, is nowhere to be found. She pushes on, and you push on. It's difficult for her, and it's difficult for the player. You do talk to your mom, who tells you everything will be okay, to focus on your breathing, which is another gameplay mechanic that happens at certain key story moments throughout the game. Breathe, focus on a feather, keep the feather in the air with your breath, which, as it turns out, is a real exercise that helps calm a person having an anxiety attack. I've actually done this before of even hearing of Celeste, and it's a great addition to help tell the story of this young woman. There's plenty of other side characters along the way. There's Theo, a selfie-obsessed man who flees Seattle on a job so he can find purpose, whom, over time, Madeline confides in. And then there's Mr. Oshiro, who is a ghost that runs a hotel, and a slight reference to the Overlook from The Shining, and he complains about clutter and the fact that no one comes to stay anymore, and that his business isn't like it usually is. The game gets more difficult as you climb. The one criticism I have of this game is that sometimes it's not too clear on what to do and even what can kill you. I didn't realize these nerve-looking things spawn blobs that kill you. I thought the blobs hanging from the walls in the hotel were kind of like the blocks you can quickly dash through, but it's honestly just me looking for things at this point. Because once I feel like I have a genuine criticism, I get the gameplay even more than I did before, and I forget that I even had a complaint. Plus, with the deaths and respawns being so quick, it doesn't feel tedious. Many other games with tough spots can get that way if there's a huge wait time between the checkpoints. Also, and I've gotta add, I did choose later in the story to put assist mode on. It was getting really difficult. I've beaten difficult games before, but the story made me feel like I wanted to know what happens and fast. How does this journey end? So I did put on assist, but the beauty of the assist comes from the fact that it never makes you feel bad for using it. It never makes you feel like a cheat. And the gameplay being as tightly controlled as it is, I decided that maybe I can go back. Try with less assists. Maybe without them at all. Just with baby steps. The game blew my mind. The story handled anxiety and depression with the utmost care. Even when it's hinted that Madeline could possibly be an alcoholic because she usually drinks and fights on the internet, which is honestly, at its best, a good representation, because she never hints that she actually likes to drink. And Theo is there to talk things through. It's all about putting the past behind you. Eventually, and spoiler warning yet again, because I'm going to be talking about key plot elements, you end up talking to your other self and making amends with her, and agree that they can help each other finish the mountain, together. Madeline even says, "We can climb this mountain together." Touching feeling making amends with yourself. Madeline sees that while she has a past and a part of herself that hides in the shadows ready to drag her down, she has to own up to it. She can't destroy it, but she can learn from it, can admit that it's there, and only then can she climb the mountain called depression, as well as the mountain Celeste. So she can rise above it all. Take a moment to reflect on her reflection, and enjoy getting the fresh air that awaits at the top. The difficulty and assists in this game play to that. You as the player are climbing the mountain. You are trying to win, but maybe you can't. Like Madeline thought she couldn't. She ends up with help like Theo, her other self, and even Granny to push through the moment and get there. Like you have help. Matt Thorson helps by putting in these assists to help you, giving you a way to push on, and hopefully by the end you can feel satisfaction, but also determination. Determination to climb unassisted. Just like Madeline, which, by the way, Madeline is a play on Maddie, when she returns 1 year later. And honestly, the determination works. I made the change. Currently climbing the mountain unassisted. I'm trying. I got through some of the levels that were giving me trouble. I'm not finished, but like anyone suffering through trauma, depression, and anxiety, they will tell you it's all about baby steps. It may be hard, it may take a long time, but with baby steps, you can accomplish your goals. I give Celeste a 5 out of 5. I say check it out sometime. And climb that mountain, even if it's hard.